And our speaker today is Dr. Athanassios Tsikliras, or Thanasis for short. He is a professor of fish biology and fisheries at the School of Biology, Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, Greece, and is head of the Laboratory of Ichthyology. His research focuses on the biology and fisheries, stock assessment and management of Mediterranean fisheries, the effect of climate on marine populations, and ecosystem modeling and management. He worked for the Fisheries Research Institute of Kavala. Kavala is a nice place. Aristotle University of Thessaloniki and University of Thessaly before returning to the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, where he has served as a full-time faculty member at the School of Biology since 2013. In addition to teaching undergraduate zoology and fish biology courses, he has since 2014 coordinated the postgraduate course on fisheries biology and management. He has participated in 50 research projects and coordinating 15 of them, including the H2020 Humongous project that's called Ecoscope. He has served as a national expert in the Marine Strategy Coordination Group, co-chaired the ICES Working Group on Small Pelagic Fishes, their ecosystems and climate impact, chaired the Fish-Based Consortium, and serves as the vice chair of the Sea Around Us Advisory Board. Welcome, Thanasis.
Thank you. Thank you, Denk. Thank you for the invitation. It's really an honor to be there, at least even remote. Uh, my main research facility is a marine ecosystem and fisheries lab, where we do most of our work on fish biology and ecology, monitoring of marine populations, stock assessment and fisheries management. And since 2015, we have developed the ecosystem model for the Aegean Sea and the temporal and spatio-temporal components. Our research is mainly funded by European projects. You can see a list of them on the bottom of this page. The ongoing one is SURIMI. It has nothing to do with SURIMI. It's not an acronym. It is a socio-ecological modeling project. The previous ones were focused on the digital twin of the ocean and the ecocentric fisheries management. That was Ecoscope. And 2 days ago, we got a huge grant as a consortium of 50 members in the European Union that will cover all waters from drinking water to lakes and rivers and marine ecosystems. But that will be probably subject of another talk in the future. Now, let me say a few things about the title. Ecocentric as a word has been around since 1949. It has been used in this amazing book you can see there by Aldo Leopold. But in fisheries management, it was introduced in 2021 with the proposal of the EcoScope project. In fisheries management, there is the A, ecosystem approach to fisheries management, which ignores socioeconomic impacts but includes environmental forcing. There is a B, ecosystem-based fisheries management, which incorporates socioeconomics into fisheries management. And then there is ecocentric fisheries management, which acknowledges the intrinsic value of marine ecosystems, regardless of human use, and aims to maintain the health, structure, and function of marine ecosystems. So this is what we have been doing within the project I will talk about today. A bit about European Union. Europe and European Union are not identical. They're not synonymous. European Union is a union of political and economic member states that started in 1957 with only 6 members, but expanded through time, reaching 25 members in 2004 and its maximum capacity just before Brexit with 28 members. Now there are 27 member states in European Union, which cover pretty much the entire continent, and 3 members that are very closely related to it, but are not officially members of the European Union. I'm only saying this because the European legislation that we will mention in this presentation are legal binding only for these 27 members. Now, talking about legislations, there are three levels of fisheries management implementation in the European Union. The top level is the union itself and the national governments that are responsible for the legislation and rules on fisheries management. There is a second level of advisory bodies. The most important of those is ICES, the northeastern part of Atlantic, and GFCM. These are FMOs responsible for fisheries management in the Atlantic and the Mediterranean Sea. ICAT for tuna and tuna-like species that are moving around. And there is a main advisory board, which is the Scientific and Technical Committee of Fisheries, which is the main advisor on fisheries issues to the Commission, which is supported by the Joint Research Center, which is a research scientific body only that is doing all the assessment, for example. And then the level 3 is the advocacy, which is mainly the environmental NGOs and fisheries associations. It is very complicated, as you will see in the next slide. There are many rules and regulations and strategies, especially developed in the last 20 years. On the top of the graph, you can see these legislation and strategies in the European Union. There are old ones that have been around since the 70s and the 80s, but the newest ones are mostly concerned with ecosystem protection, biodiversity protection, the Green Deal, sustainable economy, all these marine strategy policy directive and fisheries directives. And on the bottom slide of the graph, there are the main bodies that are responsible for regulating especially fisheries. FAO is the oldest one. GFCM is a branch of FAO for the Mediterranean Sea, and ICES, which is the most known one because it extends in both sides of the Atlantic. Now, the system is very complicated. This is a graph that shows that there are many policies and directives in the European Union. There are varying levels of targets and limits because there are so many of these directives. For example, Common Fisheries Policy and Marine Strategies Framework Directive that we will focus later are contrasting in many of their targets and level. There are very different geographical boundaries and scales and varying data availability dependent on the member states and the history they have in marine and fisheries sciences. And also the environmental and anthropogenic pressures are very different from north to south member states. Now, the Common Fisheries Policy is the law that manages fish stocks of the European Union as a whole, and it makes sure that fisheries are environmentally, economically, and socially sustainable. The blue area on the map shows the exclusive economic zones of the member states, and the green area shows the overseas territory exclusive economic zones. This is based on individual stock assessment, single species fisheries management, based on the MSY concept. So each member state assesses their own stocks or shared stocks with other states based on F over FMSY and B over FMSY, and then they provide catch advice to the fleets for the next following years. And then a few years ago, about 17 years ago, the Marine Strategy Framework Directive was put in place, aiming to protect the entire ecosystem. and biodiversity. This protection is based on 11 uh, descriptors of good environmental status. Some of them are directly related to ecosystem-based fisheries management. And this is the biological diversity, the non-indigenous species, the status of commercial fish and shellfish, marine food webs, eutrophication, seafloor integrity, and alteration of hydrographical conditions. The other ones are mostly related to energy, noise, and chemical pollution. Now, within this is the main part of the presentation beginning. Now, to address these good environmental status, the European Commission and together with fisheries management uh, made a call a few years ago that would fund two projects to promote sustainable fisheries and healthy marine ecosystems at the same time. So we put a proposal there. There were 15 proposals submitted initially over stage one. 5 of them made it to the full proposal evaluation. That was stage two in September 2020. And 2 of them were finally funded. So Ecoscope was one of them, which started in September 2021 and it ended last August. The name Ecoscope was suggested after a fantastic paper that was written by Philippe Curie in 2004. That was, in fact, what he proposed back then, we did in this proposal. The consortium was 24 partners from 17 countries. Among them was UBC, the academia partners, the academic partners, also Aquatics, that runs fish base and sea life base, and Ecopath Initiative, which runs Ecopath and Ecosim and Ecospace software. There were also 5 advisory board members from all continents, and this is a map of the institutions that were involved in this consortium. Now, the main idea of the project was to co-design and develop an efficient, holistic, ecosystem-based approach to sustainable fisheries management that can help policymakers and advisory bodies like the ones I was showing before. The main aim of the proposal was to develop a platform with all European seas, with all data homogenized under a common standard type and format, a toolbox that would help decision makers and that would include new indicators and old ones, a series of ecosystem models to test fisheries and climate change scenarios, a serious gaming platform which would allow policymakers to see directly the changes of any decision or of any scenario to the whole ecosystem, an academy for capacity building, and a mobile application to enhance citizen science. This is the graph we put in the proposal. The moving from science to society, the platform would include all European seas. The models and assessments would be developed in case study areas. The toolbox would be a universal tool that could be used anywhere. And then moving from the project to the society, there will be the mobile application, a stakeholder forum to inform them about the project progress, and the academy, which would be courses, webinars, and summer schools to educate people of various levels. Now, the project was grouped, the work packages were grouped in 3 clusters. The first one, cluster A, named bottom-up and top-down forcing on ecosystems, was applied to all European seas, and the main deliverable was the platform. The second cluster was the quantification for management and planning, included assessments and ecosystem models. The main output was the toolbox. And then there was cluster C, which is the interaction with society and economy that form cluster C. The future initially we had a preparatory stage of identified gaps in knowledge, and the future would be through the academy and application and also business planning for the viability of the model of the project after the funding has ended. So in time, as you can see, there is the gap uh, stage here, where we identify data gaps in modeling, assessment, biological knowledge, the big data cluster, where we compiled all these oceanographic fisheries and biological data into the platform. Then we perform several analyses and run a series of ecosystem models. And then we inform the decision makers and we had feedback from them on what scenarios to apply. And then it's the final stage of the four products, as I said before. Within the project, we tried to use every single new development in science, including ecological niche model, ecosystem overfishing indicators, risk assessment for vulnerable species, and energy scapes. I will talk about all these in a few slides later. And then we used the main tools and databases and models that were available, and also partners in Ecoscope. So we had data from sea around us, aqua maps, fish basins, sea life base, to inform the platform and run the models. And then we had EcoPath, EcoSim, and EcoSpace to to examine the climate and fisheries management, but also policy scenarios depending on the area, because these models were not, the scenarios were not the same, but were adjusted to the peculiarities of its area. For example, we had alien species in the Med, but we had offshore wind farms in the north. Now, before we started the project, we had a co-design stakeholder workshop. We wanted to know what key stakeholders need from a project like that. So we came up with a list of things. MSY is number one, incidental bycatch, MPAs, scenarios for establishing MBAs, protection of endangered species, seabed impacts of fishing gear, integrated climate change in models, promote marine spatial planning, use biodiversity indicators, and final on regionalization of management. And this is what, on the right, this is how ChatGPT thinks ecosystem-based fisheries management looks like. There is a lot of males with beards and ties, and they discuss. All they are sitting in front of a computer, but the few fishers that are not wearing ties or something else are standing. This is what we got from AI when we asked this question. Now, we designed all the outputs and models of the project based on the needs of stakeholders. And we tested various fishing effort, climate, and MPA scenarios and other policies under uncertainty and deep uncertainty. And we also included social and economic data, which was also one of the main things we had to include in ecosystem-based fisheries management. So we promised these four tools I told you about: the platform, toolbox, academy, and app. Also a series of ecosystem models and the MSP challenge simulation platform. And let us go through this in our deliverable stage. Now the project is done, so we have delivered everything. This is how the platform looks like. This is Europe, European seas. The areas, the marine areas are the ISIS ecoregions in yellow, and in red below are the FAO and ISIS areas, sub-areas, divisions, and subdivisions. We wanted to have the lowest possible mapping, and the same holds for the Mediterranean Sea, the FAO areas with yellow, and the subdivision of GFCM with red here. So for each of these areas, the user is able to download all the components that they require to run ecosystem models or stock assessment. And that would include all oceanographic data, climate change scenarios, meteorological data, fisheries data, fishing effort data, catch from sea around us, because otherwise catch is reported based on these divisions here, these squares, and also bathymetry and benthic habitat data. This is an example of sea surface temperature on the top and chlorophyll on the bottom map. And the user is also able to overlay maps on top of each other. So they can have in the same map, they can have bathymetry, habitats, fishing effort, and the distribution function, for example. As we can see here, this is, I think it's anchovy in the Black Sea based on the data of sea around us. And at the same time, they can select a point on the map and have the time series of data uh, at this point of all the parameters that are included in this platform. So this is the main deliverable that was very important because it was the first time that all this data were included in the same platform and the user would not have to standardize data area units from various sources. Now, the second output was a toolbox that at the end included two indices. The first one is the Fisheries Index for Sustainable Harvesting, FIS, and the other one is MESI, the Marine Ecosystem Sustainability Scoring Index. The left one, FIS, included only fisheries indicators that were based on catch data. This was not actually promised when we wrote the proposal, but we thought it would be a good idea to include it at the end of the project. MESI was promised, that included indicators, fisheries, socioeconomic, oceanographic, climate, and community indicators. I will go over those in a minute. So the fish index indicators are the classic output of stock assessment, F over FMSY, B over BMSY. We wanted to have some community indicators like the mean weighted trophic level of the catch, which also indicates the size of stocks, the fishing balance index and fishery sustainability index. Also, these can be used, can be calculated based on official data from FAO and sea around us data at ecosystem level. We included all three ecosystem overfishing indicators proposed by Jason Link a few years ago, and also a resilience index and mean temperature of the catch as a climate indicator. We have a series of other indicators that could be potentially included, like the percentage of other species to total landings, the catch to MSY ratio, and the primary production required to sustain fisheries. Now, for the MS index, we had to comply with the MSFD descriptors of good environmental change status. So the first two indicators were identical to the previous one because they fulfilled the requirement of MSFD descriptor 3, which is the commercial fish stocks. Then the mean trophic level of the catch and the Besito index are indicators of biodiversity, alien species, and food webs at the same time. Biodiversity, for biodiversity indicator 1, we used the IUCN listed stocks only. It's a proxy. It's not that it identifies biodiversity altogether. Seabed integrity was approximated using the relative benthic status. I will talk about that in a minute. And then climate impact, we had an option of SST, sea surface temperature, marine heat waves, frequency and intensity of them, and mean temperature of the catch. For eutrophication, we had the option of nutrients, chlorophyll, and primary production. For profitability, the fisheries profitability, the subsidies, and the human consumption, the percentage of cuts directed to human consumption. And then for societal indicators, we wanted to have community well-being, social vulnerability, and fishing resilience. Uh, at the end, we selected some of them because we couldn't have a lot. The ones for which we had better data or the ones that were most easily perceived by the decision makers. Uh, so we managed to somehow address these seven indicators, the descriptors of Marine Strategy Framework Directive, and to suggest an alternative for determining good environmental status for those indicators. Now, I'm not sure if this will work, so we'll go over the index. This is built as a Shiny app application, our Shiny application. So it doesn't require any programming skills to run. The user selects the scenario or the area in this case from the inspect input menu. They get the dataset there. The dataset, of course, it needs some preparation stages before, but with the platform, the user can download all this data for the area they need as a time series, and then they get this is the output of the model for a specific area. They get a score, which is a weighted average of all 10 indicators for a specific year, and they get also the uncertainty around the stock, and they get the time series. We standardized each indicator so that the 100 will be the good one and the 0 will be the worst one. And based on that scenario, you can see here the GNC that is going down over the last years. This is the fisheries indicator and shows that all indicators that are related to fisheries except the fishing balance are in 2021 are red or yellow, which means that they're below 50% in score. We ran this for all case studies of the model. As you can see here, the status is bad or average for most of them. Some of the indicators are improving, but most of them were really good in the 70s and the 80s, but have been declining since then because mostly because of overfishing. Now, the MESI index, again, the way to calculate is the same, but the input is different. Again, this time series have to be prepared in advance as an input to the model, but most of them can be directly calculated from the platform. Again, it's the GNC. It's being improved over the last years. Some of the indicators are blue and even green and even blue. And the weighted score is way better compared to the fisheries indicators, mostly because some of the biodiversity and community indicators that we used are very short in time series. We don't have data before 2017. And for that reason, there's no variability among them. So they're scoring, the scoring in these indicators was calculated according to the time series itself. So yes, some of them they appear good, but we don't have a baseline for that back in time. There is a video here which shows how these this is in our server, the toolbox, the entire toolbox is there. It So how the user can select an area or input their own data to run both indices in either FAO subareas or in ICES, like here the green one, ecoregions. It's available, freely available for everyone to use, but we have not published it yet, which we plan to do in a few months. Now, on top of that, we produced marine ecosystem assessments for all case study areas, similar to the ICES ecosystem overviews and assessments that are available only for the Northeast Atlantic areas. We did the same. We did not replicate the work of ICES, but we did the same based on Ecoscope data only for the Mediterranean regions, and we had habitat bathymetric maps, marine protected areas, chlorophyll and temperature distribution, also some socioeconomic data, some data from sea around us regarding the cats, and the two indices. In the academy, this is the third main output of the project. We created a series, one online course with a series of modules that relate to the project itself. And these are, again, open courses that the student can read with references, self-assessment, and with certification of attendance at the end. Within this academy, we also run some training courses in summer schools on big data analytics, fisheries and oceanography. That were both held in Kavala and Thessaloniki. ABCs of stock assessments, advanced stock assessment workshop, and then it's the application we also developed within this project that allows citizens to report data or pollution incidents or stranded animals or ghost fishing gears to the national authority or local authorities. These data are then gathered and are used for ecosystem management purposes. We developed, on side of these four main outputs of the models, we developed a series of ecosystem models in 8 case study areas. We all used all Ecopath with EcoSim in all areas. We wanted to be consistent with some basic scenarios. But the scenarios we tested and the data set we used, it's not consistent among areas because there are different needs in every area. But we managed to have 8 ecosystem models, base models, Ecopath models, 8 ecosim simulations in time, and 6 ecospace models, which is really good. We did not anticipate that success in these ecosystem models. And based on the ecosystem models of the Eastern Mediterranean Sea, this is the area you can see here, the Aegean and Levantine together. We developed this marine spatial planning challenge simulation platform, which combines the ecosystem models of the two areas into a single one and allows the user to, for every scenario of space or policy or fisheries or climate, to see the effect on every ecosystem, on every functional group of the ecosystem. This is how it looks. This is the area. The shaded areas are offshore wind farms planned. They're not there anymore. These are the aquaculture units in the area. These are on the left. These are the areas where oil extraction platform are planned to be included in the south of Cyprus. And with this dashboard on the left, the user can design any uh, anthropogenic forcing on the ecosystem and see how this affects the entire ecosystem. This is not online yet, but it will be in a few weeks. It's very useful. It's a very coarse ecosystem model, but it's very useful for policymakers, local authorities that they design on map wind farms and aquaculture units, but they do not really know how this will affect the entire ecosystem. So some interesting results of the project, we did a multi-assessment of fish and vertebrate stocks across all these 8 case study areas on a functional group basis. The stock status is improved compared to what we had done about 10 years ago. On the right-hand side is the previous assessment of 400 stocks in European seas. The darker the color, the worse the state of the stock and the uh, fishing pressure. And now the colors, as you can see, are more bright in many areas, including some of the Mediterranean Sea. We did perform this relative benthic status assessment, which assesses the impact of trawling to benthic ecosystem. This takes values from 0 to 1. The higher the number, the better the status. It basically relates the trawling areas to untrawled areas. This is the data for which we don't have any mapping before 2017, and this shows that the status is relatively stable for these 5 or 6 years for which we had this data, and is improving only in the Bay of Biscay, which is the last one. So this elevates the Messi score a lot. We also used the JARA risk assessment to see whether the demersal sharks and rays of the Mediterranean, how the trend of their biomass appears in time, and we came with these numbers. Most of them are ranked as least concerned, but there are some that are critically endangered, and this number is higher in the Adriatic Sea and the Balearic compared to the Aegean Sea. This is for small-sized demersal sharks and rays based on a bottom troll survey. We also used the ecosystem overfishing indicators that were proposed a few years ago. They were named after scientists, and they were calculated. They are calculated regularly in the NOAA marine ecosystem status. We wanted to do the same for European seas. We got some very interesting results and very different between the Mediterranean and the Atlantic, mostly because the primary production of the Atlantic and the Mediterranean are way different. So we came across this, the overall status, which is green, surprisingly, only for the Aegean Sea, and medium to bad for the other areas. We used the energy requirements of top predators to see where the distribution will be in the Mediterranean Sea and how these two relate. So we calculated the metabolic rate of all top predators based on the data distribution and the energy content of prey, and we estimated roughly the abundance and biomass of those in the Mediterranean Sea only. This was published in PNAS last year, I think, not this year. And we also calculated how much of this biomass, the overlap of biomass between fisheries and the diet. There was overlap only for the small pelagic fish uh, with fisheries and the diet of pelagic fishes were the only case where overlap was observed. All the other categories, they did not overlap with fisheries in the prey items. A few weeks ago, we published this operationalization of ecosystem-based fisheries management uh, based on the actors and the actions that are required. There is another paper coming up, which is a combination of the two projects that got funded. It will be in ISIS and will be a series of paper on how to operationalize ecosystem-based fisheries management. This is an example of how what we did in Ecoscope will work in real life, starting from a collection of fisheries and other data sets uh, through the platform, assessing the previous status of fisheries and ecosystem using the two indices of the toolbox, develop an ecosystem model with temporal and spatial dynamics and series of scenarios, co-design the scenarios with stakeholders, incorporate drivers like effort and climate change, and then account for social well-being and economy using subsidies and profitability and other indicators, socioeconomic nature, and then improve the capacity building by putting all these results and the findings into Ecoscope Academy. Then this can be revisited every year or every 5 years, depending on the management plan of each area, and feedback the models and retest with new tools and new data. This is the example was the EU Fisheries Action Plan that was published in April 23 and suggested that a large part of the fishing grounds should be closed to fishing, like creating a 30 by 30 MPAs. It's very popular nowadays in Europe. And we tested that in the Aegean Sea. So this cycle here is a real example. We also create a short promotion film of the project. In fact, maybe two, if I'm not mistaken. We published a research topic in Frontiers. The first part was data gaps based model and initial assessments that was published in 2023. The second, which will be published next year, is the tools management scenario and capacity building to support decision making in fisheries and ecosystems management. 10 papers in each, I think. There are a lot of over 50 articles were published in journals, 10 or more are under review and over 10 in preparation, which is 50 was the target of the project unofficially, but it was the target, but now we are okay with that. We participated as co-conveners in the 40 years of EcoPath in the 2023 EcoPath Symposium in Belgium in 2024. We co-organized the Fish-Based Symposium where 25 years of Xenados were celebrated in Thessaloniki in 2024 again. This is funny again, it's the how ChatGPT believes fish-based would look in ancient Greece. And the most fun thing of all is something that was not planned in the beginning, but we did create a fishing ships version of the Aegean Sea. It's a card game that aims, the winner is a player who fishes in sustainable way and maintains a healthy ecosystem, while at the same time gets enough points from fishing. We have produced about 1,000 of these cardboard games and distributed the English versions to several colleagues across the globe. And the Greek versions are intended for schools and environmental awareness organizations in Greece. We have distributed almost half of them already. This is the game, this is the MSc students playing the game. It was an essay they had to write about how to win this game. This is our friend and colleague Howard Townsend from NOAA in the States playing over a beer break with his lab members. And I will end with a key message of EcoScope project, which is to shift from anthropogenic to ecocentric fisheries management. Ecocentric, as defined in the beginning of this talk, we need to co-design e-tools to promote this holistic EBFM using ecosystem models that will include habitat, trophic interactions, food webs, and will meet the requirements of the new missions, reforms, and directives of the European Union. I would like to thank the three most valuable members of the project. That's Donna Markopoulou. She will soon be an assistant professor in Hawaii. Ioannis Keramidas just finished his PhD and he's a postdoc now. And Sophie Manouchi, who was the backbone of the project because he was the project management in AUF. And this is the group where we last week in a city in Greece, there was a local conference and we presented the final output of the model. And the successor of the model of the EcoScope project, which is Surimi, which is socio-ecological modeling approach to fisheries management again. This is the group of my former, current, and future PhDs. And with that, I would like to thank you for the invitation again. And after I drink some water, I'm open to questions.
I'm going to, while you take a drink of water, first of all, thank you for a very extensive presentation and a huge, huge project. And the question I always have about these projects, and not in a negative way, but I'm always curious about them, is, you get a grant to set it all up, and then what happens to sort of the legacy of it with keeping up all these databases?
Yes, it's a very good point. That was that a few years ago. Every project like that, if they didn't have something to come after that, or Necoscope 2, for example, would fall apart. Now, for every big project like that exceeds 3 or 4 million euros, the European Commission force you to include a business planning of the model, which means what will happen if the funding phase is over. So we did that. We came up with a cost of 1 million to maintain these databases and the platforms. It's not realistic, but in some cases, you can use, for example, the toolbox will be hosted in the servers of Aristotle University, and we use the overhead money to support it for the near future. Or we have transformed to 3 different consortia and applied for another grant, and 2 of them got it. So we will use these databases in a future project. But apart from that, there is no central.
Uh-oh. Oh, he's back. There we go. We lost you momentarily.
Okay.
I think we got most of the answer.
Yeah.
Sorry, Colette, do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, David. Athanassios, I mean, yeah, thank you so much for that presentation. It was like really impressive, and the scope of the project is also super impressive. So yeah, I'm really grateful for you making the time, especially I guess it's late at night for you to come and present here. I really like I like the creativity that you've brought to the project, and also the diversity of dimensions that you focused on, and the products that you've worked with. From a personal, I mean, I have lots of questions, and I might reach out to you via email just to potentially connect and ask more in-depth questions. But like for the purposes of now, I was just really curious as to this platform, because this is something that I remember Daniel talking about when I was doing my PhD, even as something, like the room at UBC is designed for that. And like, I'm just really curious as to, like when you have engaged with folks on this platform, with this platform, and perhaps like if it's also part of like the Surimi project that you have, I'm just really curious in what you think are lessons learned for you in how people engage with it, especially decision makers, and what they take away from it, and or what you think would be things that still need to be refined to really sort of like convey the message so that people really kind of move in the right direction.
Yes, thank you. Yes, very interesting because we did have a second stakeholder workshop last May at the end of
Mm-hmm.
the project where we presented all the tools and we had a special day devoted to them playing and creating their own scenarios in this MSP challenge platform. So we had creating imaginative countries and imaginative scenarios. Each one was allocated with a scenario and they had to create it themselves. So they thought it was fascinating because they did what they were seeing in models and papers, they did themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
they managed to quantify the impact in various ecosystem components, including dolphins in one case, seabed in the other case, etc. So I think they perceive it very, very well. The problem with that is that the scientific basis is very coarse. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's the ecosystem. The underlying ecosystem model uh, had a lot of assumptions. So it will show them what happens, but not will not provide actual numbers. And this is
Mm-hmm.
used sometimes they need 1,324 tons to be collected. That's the catch advice. It's even
Yeah,
with
yeah, yeah.
decimal places, they need some numbers sometimes. But I think it's a first step and it's good at least for this area, which is data poor mostly. It's a very good first step to have it there and show them the impact of putting 1,000 wind farms in the Aegean Sea, for example, which is
Mm-hmm.
reality, it's not like imagination.
Yeah.
Yes, I think we're
Okay.
getting there.
Thank you so much, Athanassios. And as I said, I'll follow up with you on. I would love to know more, but I'll let Deng take the next
Yeah,
question. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the work you've done and you coming to talk to us about it.
thank you.
So,
Go ahead.
just a clarification of you were saying that the platform will be maintained and there's going to be like a maintenance thing that is assured for, but it doesn't mean that the data sets will be updated. Is this correct?
Yeah, when we planned the project, that was 6 years ago, it was not that easy to connect to the data set and update them at the same time. Now, with the development of digital twin of the oceans, we will have this possibility. So the next step of a similar project in the future would be to connect directly to the digital twin of the ocean, the data
Mhm.
lake, and update their own system at the same time, which saves some time for us and space and money, but also puts a lot of pressure on those that maintain the digital twin of the ocean, because they will have to update their data set and keep them in the same type of format. We plan to do that with EcoPath, with EcoSim and SimRY++ to put those models there so that the user can use them directly with the data sets that are included in the data lake of DDO. It will happen soon. I'm not sure it will happen by 2030 that they aim to, but soon after it will.
Okay, yeah. But I can have another question. I just want to
Yeah.
clarify if the Ecoscope Academy is free for use by everybody.
Yes, it is. The company, it was a small company, LearnWords, that created these online courses in 2019. It's a huge company of 200 personnel now, and they give us as a gift the open access to the platform for 5 years. In the beginning, they really needed these 150,000 euros they got to develop this. But now they don't at all, but they provide it for free because they're happy with the output. So it will be free for at least 3 to 5 years.
Okay, nice. Okay, thank you,
And so
Athanassius.
will be the toolbox for at least 3 years at the university. And the platform, I'm not sure because there is a lot of private companies going on there, and I'm not sure if if they don't make money, I'm not sure they will invest on keeping it.
Okay, thank you, Athanassius.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, so I'd like to have you join me in thanking Athanasios on a really interesting talk on a very impressive project, and for also staying up late to join us.